Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And good morning to you. Welcome to the show. It's August 3, 2022. A lot of stuff to talk about. The primary results, certainly, up there. I want to talk about something I've been intending to talk about for a few weeks now to start things off. And I just never brought it up because it seems so strangely bizarre and complicated. And a lot of the reporting I was reading, especially in the New York Times, was just not giving me any real indication of what the hell was going on until finally I read enough stuff and cut through it that I understood. So what I first want to talk about today, actually, is this one story coupled with another story, both of which are in the news today again. And I'm going to put them together. One is a Pennsylvania story and one is a national story. And they both say something about how the Republican Party operates at the state level here and at the national level in D.C. I'll start with the state. The Supreme Court of Pennsylvania yesterday, thank God, overturned a lower court ruling and upheld the mail-in voting law that the state had passed, 2 years ago or something? The reality is, it's 2019. And the thing here that I want to point out is that this was a case that was brought by state Republicans who, after 2020, saw that mail-in voting seemed to have helped Democrats more than Republicans. And now, having voted for mail-in balloting, overwhelmingly, the Republicans overwhelmingly had approved it in 2019. And then when it turns out their party became the party of election deniers, the party of having to cast doubt on any form of voting other than showing up in person the day of the vote, with an ID and every other hurdle that they could think to impose. And for some reason, that was not their thinking in 2019, just a year before, when they overwhelmingly, along with Democrats, this is one of the few times you see the legislature in Harrisburg in a bipartisan vote. They all agreed. Great idea, long time coming. We need to make it easier for Pennsylvanians to vote. And then Donald Trump happened. And the whole Republican message that somehow our voting was suspect. And so the GOP decided to claim that bill, which they had overwhelmingly passed, was in fact, now that they thought of it, unconstitutional. They got a Republican PACT court to agree with them, and that court declared it unconstitutional. And then it made its way to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which yesterday said, any unconstitutional. It's absolutely fine. It upheld the bill, which was only, again, I can't underscore this enough, was uncontroversial upon passage with this overwhelming, somewhere I've got the number of votes, nearly unanimous support. And then all those Republicans who make up the majority realize that, my God, we've got to say that mail-in voting is, this is not right, because it kept Donald Trump from being elected, or whatever insanity is upsetting them. Anyway, this thing of Republicans turning on a dime and not telling the truth about why they changed their minds all of a sudden, monolithically, all these individual people all of a sudden realize that their robust vote the year before was clearly unconstitutional. And the only thing that had happened is their party had decided that in order for them to win, they had to malign in every way they could the voting apparatus of their own state and of the votes of their own voters. So that was one example of the Republicans here doing a dizzying 180 that didn't seem to make any sense if you probed them. Wait a minute, I thought you voted for that. Wait, you were lauding this. Now you think it is some danger to the Commonwealth? Where'd you get that lame-brained idea? And the other is, of course, this so-called PACT Act, which also, same scenario. This is a bill in Congress that, in an initial vote, don't ask me, we've learned certainly about the arcane rules of the United States Senate, but quite clearly, a majority of, I think it was a majority of Republican senators and Democratic senators voted for this bill called the PACT Act. It would, I'm sure you've read something about it now, it would provide much needed medical care and access to veterans who have been sickened because of toxic burn pits that were used to dispose of anything and everything in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now many of them are fighting a health battle with respiratory disease, cancers, all kinds of stuff. And in fact, President Biden feels very strongly that his son Beau's fatal and aggressive lung cancer was a result of his service as a veteran. And so here is this, how do you vote against it? Of course, these guys are struggling, dying, and yet the VA was saying, well, we can't say that this cancer you have or that is a result of your service. This was to ensure that that would not be the case. It is a result of your service. And the Republicans supported it. And then all of a sudden, kaboom, 25 of them, 25 Republican senators turned on a dime and started decrying this bill. And this is where I got so mixed up, because I couldn't understand what they were saying. It was that sort of mumbo jumbo that politicians engage in that so fogs up any attempt by a layman to understand what the hell they're talking about. It was, budgetary this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And there was this, all of a sudden, 25 of them decided that their vote the day before had been clearly insane. Now, the mover and shaker behind this reversal was none other than our own Senator Pat Toomey, who, as we know, we will be well rid of in a few months' time. And stop and think about it. Toomey has been a less than stellar member of the U.S. Senate. He has almost always voted in lockstep with Trump and with the most conservative parts of his party. And when the Republicans decided to turn on a dime, they told Toomey, "You're the guy who carries the ball here." You know why? Because when you vote against veterans, when you vote against sick veterans, especially if you're a party that is constantly waving the flag and thanking veterans constantly for their service, well, you got to have some cover. If all of a sudden you're voting against a bill that would help those guys who've been harmed doing their service. And so Toomey, because he would bear no cost if this thing went south, gets the nod. He would bear no cost because he ain't running again. So we'll let Toomey, who rarely carries the ball, who you rarely see on Sunday news shows, we're going to put him in charge. And sure enough, there he was on State of the Union on Sunday, looking extremely uncomfortable because he was arguing something that made no sense. He couldn't say why all of a sudden they'd all turned. Oh, he had word salad, went on and on and on and on and on about funding and this and slush funds and all bullshit. All bullshit. What he couldn't say was that the Republicans, at the behest of Mitch McConnell, did this reversal, decided to screw veterans because they were pissed off beyond belief by Joe Manchin's turnaround that gave Joe Biden potentially a great victory. It was, and Manchin said he would support Biden's bill, that literally an hour later, this Republican turnaround on the other bill happened. Somebody's got to pay. They don't care who. We'll throw veterans under the bus. But we're going to blow this baby up because they, Manchin, betrayed us. This is the kind of petty, dirty politics that Republicans, Mitch McConnell, that they play. Vengeance, payback, collateral damage, doesn't matter. And I just find them repulsive. You know I do. I know politics is ugly. But, boy, no one plays it uglier than the GOP. So Toomey, looking like a deer caught in the headlights on State of the Union, was being peppered by what's his name? I can't think. And the guy who helped bring this to national attention, these things happen all the time, and you can't get the media's attention. And if the media doesn't get interested, then you don't get people demanding that their representatives in Washington do the right thing. Jon Stewart. This is the second time he's done this he did it for first responders, and then he did it. He is brilliant at speaking truth to power and the gibberish that the powerful employ to flim-flam the rest of us. Jon Stewart is ingenious at using his celebrity to accomplish something real that will change lives, that will save lives, that will help people's lives. Most celebrities who use their celebrity to, yak like me, they just talk. Boy, Stewart, I just want to say he's a mensch. And he was in the gallery when the Republicans, because of him, because of the pressure, turned on a dime again and passed this bill that just was nothing more to them than a political football. And Stewart in the gallery with some of the veterans, as the roll call began, put his face in his hands and wept. As opposed to Ted Cruz and I forget the other loathsome Republican who, after turning around and vowing to gut this bill, fist bumped, celebrating, screwing veterans. Just to be clear, the first time that exact same bill, there was nothing different in it. The Senate passed it 84-14. And then they turned around and did it in because Joe Manchin had pissed him off. It's this kind of cynical, unbelievably cynical and nasty use of power that I see Republicans trafficking in constantly. Because, really, they don't believe in legislating. They believe in control and power. And I just find them loathsome. And I love the fact that Toomey, who I suppose wanted to go out as some respected member of the Senate, on his way out has been tarred by carrying the ball and, of course, fumbling. And when he was questioned on State of the Union about Jon Stewart, rousing the public for the troops, Toomey called Jon Stewart a pseudo-celebrity. I wonder how Senator Toomey feels about losing his shirt to the pseudo-celebrity, Jon Stewart, and losing his reputation, if he had one. Jon Stewart noted, this is before he succeeded, it's funny, Senator Toomey never called for spending caps. That's what Toomey was saying. Oh, this is all about money. We have to be sure that there are caps and this thing just runs a certain course because we got to watch out for the money. And Jon Stewart said, it's funny. Toomey, he was never worried about money or spending caps when there was a war to throw that money at. Troops to be sent to fight that war. No, the only time Toomey all of a sudden started worrying about the money was when it came to the health care for the veterans who were sickened by Toomey's wars. Incredible. And the reason I had trouble talking about this is because, and here's what the New York Times, the reporter who was working on this, did such a horrible job. Their writing didn't make any sense about why the Republicans were not all of a sudden voting for it, because they were attempting to treat this as if it was some legitimate concern about money or something, and the reporter never had the courage, and this is where the media makes me nuts, to say what was really going on. That this was nothing more than petulant payback because of Manchin and attempting to keep another legislative success away from Joe Biden. My God, gas prices have been coming down. All this stuff's going on. We got to hurt this guy. We can't keep having stuff happening here that he's going to be able to take credit for. So fuck those veterans. Incredible. Anyway, I'm sorry. It's and I can hear people saying, "Oh, you think only Republicans do this kind of?" No, I think politics, as I said, is a dirty business, and I think Republicans have taken this dirty business to a level that, to be nice, you would call it an art form. But in fact, it's quite the opposite of art. It is muck and slime. I'm hoping that the fact that Republicans have literally gone off the rails will prove to be their undoing in the long run. That while they are celebrating their victories, like at the Supreme Court, they finally got what they wanted. And they got Roe taken out. And then yesterday, voters in one of the reddest states in the union, doesn't get much more conservative than Oklahoma. They went to the polls and by almost 2/3 margin slapped back at the Supreme Court, at the anti-abortion crowd, and that's in a red state. here's the possible good news. The Republicans are in the thrall of their crazy people. Not just in the thrall, they're now all become crazy people. And as a result, the crazies are winning in all their primaries. You saw the Arizona results, Michigan. The crazies win. But then the crazies have to stand in a general election. And the crazies, this is a hope and calculation of the Democrats, will lose. I don't know. I'm praying now that this overreach, this constant insanity, and the crazier the candidates, Mastriano here, that these are ways that the Democrats will pick up these seats. Instead of Toomey, we'll have Fetterman. And in other states as well, you will see these switches, let us hope, to a Democrat, because these crazies are being put up to a general electorate that really doesn't have the stomach for this level of crazy. Caller, go ahead.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hey, I think you've said this before. I mean, I don't know if I know you weren't flippant about it, but aren't we kind of done? I mean, we the great experiment. I mean, how do we get past this? Because there is a huge percentage of our people who do believe the big lie. They do believe Nancy Pelosi told Trump not to have troops ready January 6th. They just can't allow themselves, and it's a psychological thing. They just keep believing all this shit, and it's just like 1930s Germany, and that's how Hitler became successful. Early.
That's true, and it was a minority, and the majority just said, "Oh, these crazies." You're right. We are at an extremely dangerous juncture in our history, but there are these. I'm just talking about my hope that the Republicans will overplay their hand, and that in the general election, I'm feeling more comfortable that we might pick up seats in the Senate.
I guess November.
I'm scared out of my mind about the House.
I mean, November is going to be a big tell, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm at the point now where I work in Crazyville, and guess what?
I know you do.
But the thing is, I'm not odd. I'm not unusual. I think I talk to my daughter and her wife who live in New York City, and they look at me like what I say. I have three heads. They and anybody who lives in the inner city and doesn't venture out are living in a fucking bubble.
So are all the people on the other side who don't go into the city. We're bubble people now. But
the thing is, just like Nazi Germany, how Hitler became power, it was just a small minority of people, not even that small, but like 30% or so who got the conservatives to come on board with them, and that's how they took over. And that's why you go all over the countryside and in suburbs, and you see people who believe all this nonsense, people who live in lily white neighborhoods who are afraid that the big black boogeyman's going to come in and break in their house and steal their shit and rape their women. They have guns. They have security systems. They have cameras all over the place, and I don't think they can go back. So the next question is, if we can't get them back, they're just not going to go crawl away in their holes, I don't think. And this is the question I have with my wife and a lot of women. It's like, is it time that you get your guns and you protect yourself and be prepared for all the crazies?
Well, my sister would totally agree that, yeah, that's an individual choice. I'm not ready to get a gun yet because I do know that guns in the house are generally bad for the people in the house.
Absolutely.
So I don't want them around, but I don't know what to tell you. I can't, I'm not going to, I don't know what the future holds.
I'm scared. I'm just
heartened. I'm scared too, but I was heartened by the vote in Oklahoma. How could you not be heartened by that vote? Because that had to be not just Democrats. That could not have been just Democrats. But a ton of Democrats came out. A ton of Democrats came out. So it could show that Roe, if our candidates use it properly, will be a motivating force in getting the vote out, which is all it's about.
Okay, well, let's see, because right now I've just been very discouraged because the Republicans have been very good at coming out too, and even though people who are pro-choice and who want gun control are way in the majority, it just doesn't seem to make it a hill of beans the way democracy is set up.
I understand.
So anyway, all right, I got my rant out.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Goodbye.
Okay.
Goodbye. Bye. We have nothing to fear but fear itself and Republicans manipulating it. Now, if you want to feel a little less rosy, let's move from Oklahoma to Arizona. Dear God in heaven. The Republicans in Arizona are batshit crazy. I mean, we've known that because remember how Arizona Republicans were on the news? How many times did they count the vote? Arizona voted for Joe Biden, not Donald Trump. This is why Trump went insane. Fox News was the first to say, Arizona, we call for Joe Biden. And Trump's head exploded and has never, gotten back together again. And they all went insane. How many times did they count that? And they brought in, crazy people who couldn't even count to count it. And no matter how many times they counted it inside out, upside down, the vote kept coming out, Biden won. But this has driven the Republicans in Arizona absolutely insane. So if you look at who they yesterday nominated, and what's scary is that some of these people statewide in general can win. Total election deniers. Total, QAnon types. Nut cases. But looking at a Senate race that is one of the ones that the Democrats have to hold on to because it is a Democratic seat. And that's by Senator Mark Kelly, former astronaut, husband of Gabby Giffords. He has held that seat now for one term, but he's got to defend it in November. The Republicans picked to go up against him Satan. I don't know. All you have to do is look this guy up. I am telling you, look him up. Blake Masters. Masters. Blake Masters. Frightening human being. Totally believes the Great Replacement, totally believes that Democrats and probably Jews are trying to bring in as many brown people as they can to eviscerate the white man's control of this great country. He embraces the term nationalist. You can put a white as an adjective in front of that. He's a white nationalist, like a Mastriano. And he's actually on record as saying that gun violence in this country, he doesn't blame video games. He doesn't blame single mothers. He puts it squarely on one group. Quote, he said, who should be blamed? Quote, black people, frankly. Black people. So this guy is now one election away from the United States Senate. The only thing standing in his way is the sitting Senator Mark Kelly. I have to hope that someone this clearly evil, hateful, even in Arizona, will not prevail. They voted for Biden. So I'm going to hope that the Republican voters have done what they seem to have done in a lot of other places and put on the ballot somebody that the general electorate is going to be incapable of voting for. This guy, by the way, has gazillions of dollars. He's that horrible human Peter Thiel. Is that his name? One of these Silicon Valley gazillionaires. This is his boy. Yeah. And he's been bankrolling this white savior. Another thing I noticed, the way districts get redrawn in Michigan, two things that struck me. In Michigan, you have two Democrats, two members of Congress, both sitting, who got stuck taking each other on. This is happening in New York as well, where we're going to lose a member. And in the primaries, the Democrats have to decide in this redrawn district which of these sitting members will prevail. And there was an instance here in Michigan and I'm blanking on the names. But you have 11 was his name, Congressman Levin, and he was up against a woman. She also a congressperson. And money got poured into that race from the same source that poured money into the race here in the primary to replace Mike Doyle. That money was from APAC, the American Israel Political Action Committee. Do you remember how they flooded your television screens with ugly anti-Summer Lee commercials, trying to hold up, the establishment candidate, Steve Irwin, who, by the way, was Jewish. And they blew it. They failed. Yesterday in Michigan, they won. They poured money into that, and you know which one they took out? AIPAC gave all their money to the woman who is not a Jew. AIPAC gave their money to knock the Jew out, Levin, because they deemed him too progressive. They don't like progressives, which is why they've been supporting the most loathsome candidates all over the place. And I'm not suggesting Steve Irwin was loathsome, or in this case, this woman is loathsome. But in cases where you've got somebody loathsome and then somebody who is less loathsome, they often go for whoever they think is stronger on Israel. And that turns out to be a lot of crazy, whacked out Republicans who love Israel, not because they, for any reason that makes any sense. It's another wacky idea that they're not going to get the second coming unless Israel, I don't know, builds a second temple and like all the Jews go back there and we all get killed. And I don't understand any of it, but that's where a lot of that support comes from. It's fantasy land. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm just babbling today. I don't know where we're heading. I am freaked about, we could be, I'm wondering if, this is a whole other story, if we will see the greatest cover-up attempt in history, or the greatest obstruction of justice effort, maybe starting to unravel right now in regard to January 6th. Because, as you know, we all of a sudden found out that all those Secret Service guys' messages, somehow, I don't know what, may just disappear. Oh, I think you mean Kansas, not Oklahoma. Kansas, not Oklahoma. Thank you. Why do I keep saying that? They're the same to me. It's like all those square states, I mix them up. And Kansas and Oklahoma, Oklahoma's not square. Oklahoma has a very interesting silhouette. I am so sorry. I knew I wasn't. I know I'm not right today. And see, that's a classic. Damn. I even wrote it down here. Oklahoma. It's in my head. I'm sorry. Thank you all. I should have seen this a long time ago. And I was too busy ranting with my eyes glazing over. But yeah, the fact that now we find, okay, so Secret Service phones, their text messages. Oh, it's funny, for some reason, January 6th. Yeah, we don't have those. They just got wiped out. And then it turns out that the guy who was supposed to actually be securing them was part of, obviously, an ensuring that they did get wiped out. That's the Department of Defense, or no, the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General. These are all Trump appointees. And now we find out the plot thickens, because it turns out that over at the Pentagon, there was a lot of busy erasing going on as well of material related to January 6th. What is it about that date that all of a sudden things that were, emails, text messages, whatever, just something about that date, all of a sudden no one can find them. The phones of senior defense officials in the Trump administration have now also been found to have been wiped clean. Remember how everybody in his administration was acting because he couldn't put them before, they never clear a Senate committee? So he just put whoever he wanted in, and everybody was just acting. So I think it was the acting secretary of the Army, the acting secretary of this and that. These were the very people who were in charge of mobilizing the National Guard, never mind whatever Fox News is telling its brain-dead audience about Nancy Pelosi. These are the guys who had the power and were in charge of mobilizing the National Guard to respond to that attack. The acting defense secretary at the time, Christopher Miller, the acting Army secretary, Ryan McCarthy, and my, oh my, it turns out that all their text messages are gone. And this after they were told, because of the congressional investigation, that all of this information, which because of their positions is not private, it belongs to us, had to be secured. So we got now Secret Service, we got now Senior Department of Homeland Security, and we've got Senior Department of Defense. And there's nobody who would suggest that this passes any kind of smell test. So, could be some extraordinary coincidence, I guess, that all of a sudden all these big guys who had an awful lot of responsibility on January 6th, which they didn't meet, would have their records from that day just up and, went up in smoke. It might be a coincidence, and on the other hand, it might be a mammoth attempt to obstruct justice and to potentially, I guess, obstruct treason, evidence of their treason. Wow. So, yeah, all that's going on. And I mentioned the word treason. The New York Times had a front page piece today about how in Arizona, when Rudy and the others were trying to get the Arizona people to pick some bogus electors and have those guys go and vote for Trump, despite the fact that the Arizona voters had voted for Biden. It says here that when they approached the chair of the Republican Party there and a state senator also in a pretty high position, that they expressed concern. In fact, I have the words right here from one of the lawyers who was doing the dirty work for Trump, a guy named Cheeseborough. And he wrote this letter to Rudy and said, yeah, they're concerned it could appear treasonous. And yeah, and he actually had highlighted the word treasonous, put it in bold. They're worried it could be treasonous. Well, yes, sure they were, because it was. God almighty. I got a little something here. I'm looking for it. Hang on. No, I can't find it. God dang it. Oh, yeah. Now, I know a lot of people don't read the paper much, but I still, do. And when I actually get a copy of one delivered, which is who knows, it's like Christmas when it arrives because I don't expect it anymore. But I love the paper. And, used to be all we had was the newspaper, right? That was before you had television news and before radio. People got, it was the newspaper. I'm looking at a newspaper. It's a picture of a newspaper from, wow. So about 110 years ago, almost to the day. This is August 14th, 1912. And I wish I could give you what that paper's from. I don't think it's American. Here's what it says. August 14th, 1912. This is under a headline, Science Notes. The furnaces of the world are now burning about 2 billion tons of coal a year. 1912. When this is burned, uniting with oxygen, it adds about 7 billion, are those billions or trillions, tons of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere yearly. This tends to make the air a more effective blanket for the Earth and to raise its temperature. The effect may be considerable in just a few centuries. Whoever wrote that, they ain't around to see that, there were people who saw. It's a little over 1 century since that was written. And our news now is filled with raging wildfires, rampaging rivers and floods, horrific storms, drought, killing heat. And there was some little reporter, 1912. Someone did the math and burning all this coal here, and it's going into the atmosphere, and it's mixing up there with the oxygen, and, it forms a blanket over the Earth, and it's going to make things hot. There it is. Amazing. Boy. Yeah. What else do I have here? Oh, speaking of that, this is, again, something I didn't bother talking about, but I noted it because there was this, reporting that that the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is home to some of the, I think next to the Amazon, might be the largest old growth rainforests on this globe. And because of that, it's assumed there's just tons of oil under there. So the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo has said that, hey guys, our people are hungry, our people are poor, and we got to look for money, and we're sitting on money. And so we're going to go in there and we're going to start pulling oil out, which will, of course, devastate in many ways those rainforests and have a huge environmental impact. And this is despite the fact that Congo had signed the Global Climate Agreement, which said they agreed to a 10-year period to protect its rainforest. And a lot of other countries said, we'll help you. We know this is money that you're going to forego. We'll pledge to give you $500 million. How's that? And they said, well, it's not a lot, but okay, we'll do it. And then, that money sort of dribbled in here and there. A lot of other countries never bothered to pay it. Then Russia goes and invades Ukraine. Oil prices soar. Wheat goes south, and the people in this very poor country are desperate for food. And the president of Congo said something that was just considered appalling. He said, our priority is not to save the planet. No, he was being honest. His priority was to feed his people. Congo says, we're doing this because we need the revenue to help our struggling country finance programs to reduce the poverty here. We have this immediate need. And how dare you, rich countries, which built your wealth by burning your fossil fuels. You built your wealth by emitting all that poison and planet-warming fumes into the air. And now you want us to forego that same ability to create wealth after you already finished your pillaging. It's a real good question. I mean, this is what I wanted to point out, that the rich nations of the world are the ones most, without a doubt, most responsible for the pollution that has created this climate catastrophe. And I don't know that we then should turn to these countries who are still so impoverished. Wait. What is this? Snopes validates the article. Wait, I see where but it's a double standard of sorts that I wanted to. Kurt. Well, I appreciate your suspicion, but for some reason I can't open this. What you sent, it says it can't. But you said you went to the article from 1912. And you found it, and I can't get to, you went to Snopes, which is the fact check thing, and it is true. It's a true story. Yeah, it's not, yeah. There it was. Where was it? Did it tell you where it was from? I can't, for some reason, they won't let me open it. Can't open the page. Can't establish a secure connection. I get that all the time. I don't know. There's something about, I saw a slight heading. I thought maybe it was an Australian newspaper or something. But I just want to say that, once the big countries like us, take all, get rich, get fat, then we turn to struggling countries and jump all over them if they attempt to do the same. And unless we're willing to literally make up the difference, I guess these attempts to pledge that we will don't really bear enough fruit. And then I don't see how we can expect countries like Congo to not end up exploiting their resources and furthering the decline of the globe. I want to apologize for being sort of an airhead today. I felt like an airhead when I woke up this morning. And so, oh, it is. It's a New Zealand paper. Okay. Yeah. I thought Australia maybe. So there it was. They knew. It was said. We knew. We choose to ignore because, after all, we were getting rich. Life was improving. At least it appeared it was. Okay, I do want to apologize for being an airhead, calling Oklahoma, Kansas, or Kansas, Oklahoma, or whatever the hell it was I was doing. And thank you all. It's embarrassing. This is why doing live reporting stuff, live radio, live TV, which I've always done, is truly working without a net, and you fall a lot, and you get to embarrass yourself. Believe me, I'll be licking my wounds. It's embarrassing. Whatever. It was what it was. I'll see you guys tomorrow, okay? Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.